Good morning. I'm Barb Stepaniak, Vice President for Programs, and I have our Program Officer, Laura Ernst, our Director of Arts DuPage, Debbie Venezia, and our Advancement Associate, Clarice Swanson, with me to talk about our Community Impact, Arts DuPage, and Capacity Building Grant programs. So today we're going to provide a brief overview of these current grant opportunities. If you have questions during the overview, please submit them in the Q&A section, and at the end of the overview, we'll try to answer as many as possible. So the guidelines for all of our grant programs are currently on the Foundation's website under grants. And I would ask that you take a few minutes to review the respective guidelines before you begin an application. We occasionally receive applications from organizations that aren't eligible. And I really hate to see anyone spend your time putting a proposal together when we're not going to be able to review it because you are not eligible. So I want to call your attention to a few areas in the guidelines where we often get questions. Local nonprofits are eligible to apply for a community impact or an Arts DuPage grant once per calendar year. And this applies whether or not funding is awarded. So for example, if you applied for a Health and Human Services grant this spring, you are not eligible to apply for a grant this fall, even if you didn't receive a grant. Now, this restriction does not apply for our capacity building grant program, but I'll talk a little bit about that later. So in the guidelines and on this slide are the types of organizations and the types of programs that we don't support through our grant programs. So for example, governmental entities or their supporting foundations are not eligible. And this would include libraries, park districts, schools, and again, the supporting foundations that go along with them. You know, we know that they're doing good work, but there are just so many of these entities in DuPage County for us to really consider applications from all of them. So I'm going to start by talking about our Community Impact and Arts DuPage grant program. And as you can see on this slide, we have multiple priority areas. Health and Human Services applications are considering during our spring review cycle, and we just awarded 57 grants, totaling almost $1 million last week. And now we shift to focus on our fall cycle, where we will review applications in the areas of workforce development, youth education, environment, and animal welfare through the Community Impact Grant Program, and arts and culture proposals through our Arts DuPage grant program. So you may have noticed that we have two new categories, workforce development and youth education. And the reason we added these was because we wanted to place greater emphasis on receiving applications in these specific areas because we know there's a need. And so we decided to replace the general education category with these priorities. And some of the types of programs that we're interested in funding in the workforce development category are programs that would prepare people for employment, help workers advance in their careers or upskill, and to build a skilled workforce. For youth education, we're primarily looking for programs that support out-of-school educational and leadership programs for youth. So as mentioned, Health and Human Services grants were already awarded for 2025. The applications for our fall cycle, which again include workforce development, youth education, environment, animal welfare, and arts and culture, will be due by 5 o'clock on Friday, September 5th. And I want to emphasize, I do this every year, that we will not accept any applications after 5 o'clock. Unfortunately, we've had a few occasions over the years where applicants ran into trouble at the last minute and their application didn't get submitted by 5 o'clock. And some of those situations, their internet went out at the last minute and their application didn't get started. They weren't able to submit, or the documents took longer to download. The financials took longer, let's say, and you know, it didn't go through. They may have started a minute or two before 5 o'clock, but it didn't download fast enough, or they missed something in the application. And by the time they realized and went back and looked to see what are we missing, it was too late. And again, I certainly don't like telling someone that, you know, your proposal that you spent time working on won't be considered, but we really do have to be fair with everybody who did get their applications in by 5 o'clock. So if you're encountering a problem when you're submitting your application, we're available to help you walk through the issue. However, if it gets too close to the 5 o'clock deadline, it's possible we won't be able to help you resolve the issue in time for submission. So we just really want to emphasize that it's super important that you don't wait until the last few hours. This year, we're offering Community Impact and Arts DuPage grants along a continuum of seed, sustain, and strengthen. Seed grants are new for 2025, and this is an opportunity for organizations that have had their 501c3 designation for less than 3 years. And through this opportunity, organizations may apply for a dollar for dollar matching grant up to $5,000. If you're awarded a seed grant, the funds will be distributed when your organization provides the documentation that you have raised the match amount. And the reason we decided to make this a match is to help new organizations build diverse sources of funding. As you all know, fundraising isn't easy, and it's especially not easy during those first few years. But through experience, we know that it is easier to fundraise and motivate donors to give when you can tell them that their gift will be doubled by a matching grant. I want to emphasize here that organizations must already have their 501c3 when they apply. Sustain grants are basically the grants we've traditionally awarded through Community Impact and Arts DuPage, and this is where applicants may apply up to $25,000. However, if you request $5,000 or less, you will be automatically directed to a streamlined version of our application where there are fewer requirements. Now, a question that I'm often asked is, how much should I apply for? And I can't specifically tell you or answer that question, but I usually suggest that you apply for an amount that aligns with the level of impact that your program will have in the community. And when I say community, I mean the county, as well as the size of your organization. Unfortunately, we've seen situations where first-time applicants or relatively small organizations apply for $25,000. And since we hadn't had any experience with the organization or their reach was limited to a small area of the county, our grant committee was uncomfortable awarding them a $25,000 grant and didn't fund them at all. An example, many years ago, a relatively new organization with an annual budget size of about $50,000 applied for a $25,000 grant, but didn't receive funding. And the executive director subsequently told me that they would have been happy if they had gotten a $5,000 grant. Due to their size and reach, they would have had a much better chance of getting $5,000 had they applied for that amount. Instead, because they had applied for $25,000, the committee didn't want to award $5,000 out of a $25,000 ask. So one way to determine a request amount is to look at previously funded grants on our website, and that's under grants, to get a sense of the size grants that were given to other agencies of similar size or programming. Strengthen grants for 2025 will be capacity building grants, which are focused on helping build organizational capacity. And this opportunity is limited to organizations that have received a Community Impact or an Arts DuPage grant within the last 3 years. We launched our capacity building grant process last fall, and we received many more applications than we could possibly fund. So this year, we decided to focus on 2 project areas that resonated the most with our committee. And one of those areas is donor engagement and fund development. And this is for projects that will cultivate deeper donor relationships, increase giving, and develop effective fundraising strategies. For this grant, we're looking for specific projects that are already underway or are planned. We're not looking for applications that really just focus on your normal everyday fundraising. And the second area is technology upgrades and implementation. And this is for projects that will improve organizational effectiveness. So for this grant, we're looking for projects where new technology will elevate the organization's operations or provide new efficiencies. And to give you an example, many years ago, the foundation was looking to move to an online application process. And the cost to purchase the software and implement was pretty hefty, but having that new technology has been a game changer for the foundation. And it's also been, I think, for the applicants. And because we did that, we eliminated many, many pounds of paper, and everything is now digitally done, submitted digitally. So this year, you may apply for a capacity building grant, even if you submitted a community impact application this spring, or if you are planning to submit an Arts DuPage or community impact request this fall. So I would now like to turn it over to Laura to discuss the application and review process.
As Barb talked a little bit earlier in this session, through our Community Impact Arts DuPage and Capacity Building Grant programs, we accept applications from 501c3 public charities that primarily serve DuPage residents, except for those on our restricted list. In some cases, we'll consider applications from organizations that serve a wider region than DuPage. An example might be a Chicago-based organization that has a DuPage County Center where they are already delivering services to DuPage residents. We're seeing more and more organizations that are located outside of our county, but have an interest in expanding into DuPage. While they're doing great work, they are not eligible to apply until they have already established their programs in DuPage. This year, we've added a new feature at the beginning of the application. When you go to apply, you'll see an eligibility quiz to respond to a couple of questions to confirm that your organization and the program that you're applying for is eligible. If you qualify, you'll receive a notification indicating that you are eligible, and you'll be able to move forward with the application. It will also send you to the right application. So if you're an arts organization, it'll send you to Arts DuPage. If you're less than 3 years, it'll send you to the seed grant. If you don't qualify for any of those, you'll receive notification that you're not eligible to apply for the grant. If you receive a not eligible response and you think it's incorrect, please reach out to us to discuss it further. I want to emphasize that this is intended to prevent organizations that aren't eligible from spending time on an application, only to have it not be considered. Please keep in mind that when you sign your application, you're confirming that everything in the application is accurate, including these eligibility responses. All applications are submitted through our online grant portal. You can find the link to the guidelines and the applications all at DuPageFoundation.org. Our applications are reviewed by our grant committee, which is made up of board members and other community volunteers. And while they have extensive grant evaluation experience, they aren't necessarily experts in every issue area. So it's important to write your application kind of in layman's terms, so reviewers can get a good understanding of your organization and of your program. After our grant committee conducts its first round of review, we share a list of applications with the foundation's donor advisors. These are people who have established funds at the foundation, and many of them use this opportunity as a way to learn about all of your organizations, and then they can provide funding to help boost our overall grant budget. During our latest spring Health and Human Services cycle, their support more than doubled the amount that we were able to award. When we send them that list, they only see the name of your organization, the amount you've requested, and the purpose statement that you put in your application. So make sure that that statement is strong and compelling and really says something good about your request. It really is only one sentence though, so it has to be concise. It's a tall order. Listed on this slide are the financial forms or different attachments that applicants will be required to submit. When you're preparing the attachments, I highly suggest that you have your finance person or your accountant look at them, especially the financial indicators form that is only required if you're applying for more than $5,000. They're familiar with the information that we're looking for and know where it can be found. Sometimes we also see financials that don't align with the narrative of your program. So before you submit, make sure that the numbers make sense and match the rest of the numbers in your application. I also recommend making sure the financials are for the most current year that you have available, not from 5 years ago, and that none of the attachments are blank. That happens all the time. Give yourself enough time to look over the application again before submitting it. A fresh set of eyes can really help.